Hello, I'm Cheryl Prowell. I'm the supervisor of the UST and Site Cleanup Program section at the State Water Board, and I will be presenting this section today. This slide gives a brief overview of major milestones in evaluating vapor intrusion. Cali-PA-related milestones are shown in purple. Back in the 80s and 90s, there were early efforts at modeling and testing for indoor air, including the 1991 Johnson-Ettinger model that many of you may have heard of. In addition, the first guidance documents related to evaluating vapor intrusion were published during this time. In 2002, EPA published its first draft vapor intrusion guidance. This was followed shortly by DTSC's draft vapor intrusion guidance in 2004 and by OEHA's California Human Health Screening Levels in 2005. As agencies came to understand more about vapor intrusion, updated DTSC, Water Board, and US EPA guidance documents were released from 2011 to 2015. In 2014, US EPA Region 9 developed short-term action levels for TCE, highlighting the health risks and need to take prompt action for vapor intrusion cases. The Cali-PA Vapor Intrusion Workgroup was formed to develop statewide consistency in the approach used to evaluate vapor intrusion and to screen potential vapor intrusion health risks earlier in the site investigation process. The workgroup prepared the draft supplemental vapor intrusion guidance, released to the public in February 2020, shown in red, and after a comment period, the final draft was released this February. The main purposes of the supplemental guidance are to improve vapor intrusion assessments by incorporating new science, continue to protect human health and conduct early screening for potential vapor intrusion, and promote a standard process for assessing vapor intrusion acceptable by all oversight agencies. We do this through a four-step process, beginning with prioritizing buildings and selecting the appropriate sampling approach, screening with soil gas, conducting an indoor air investigation, and then managing the risk. When do we consider vapor intrusion? This slide shows the life cycle of a case. It uses circular language, which is commonly used in the DoD or DTSC process. The regional boards may use slightly different terms for the steps, but the concepts are the same. We begin considering vapor intrusion at the investigation or initial screening stage. We should be considering vapor intrusion as we start to develop conceptual site models and understand who may be at risk. We continue considering and checking our assumptions as the case progresses. For older cases, if there was not a good screening for vapor intrusion early on, use this training as an impetus to start now. As the science evolves, it's good to check our assumptions at major milestones, including the 5-year review. Now let's get into the guidance itself. What does it do? It provides a stepwise process for building-specific vapor intrusion assessments. It uses a multiple lines of evidence approach. It provides appropriate sampling procedures to help practitioners and regulators get important data for decision-making. It uses US EPA's 0.03 attenuation factor for screening. It allows alternative approaches to using US EPA's attenuation factors when it is scientifically sound and technically supported. It promotes a consistent risk management framework. What it doesn't do is provide guidance for the overall site investigation for all media of concern, such as soil or groundwater, and it doesn't apply to petroleum underground storage tank sites, but it does offer guidance for other petroleum type releases. These are some common questions that we get about the final draft vapor intrusion guidance. First, are we still receiving comments? The public comment period was held from February to June of 2020. The final draft version was updated in response to the comments that we received and includes a response to comments. Can we cite this even with draft in the title? Yes, it is available for use and represents a consensus approach agreed to by DTSC, OEHA, and the Water Board. Can you use other approaches? Yes, alternate approaches should be justified, and in many cases, the guidance provides factors to consider when evaluating the alternate approaches. Why use the 0.03 vapor attenuation factor? This attenuation factor is based on federal US EPA guidance. It provides protectiveness at most sites for unrestricted land use, and it is appropriate when information about the subsurface or building is limited. 24 of 28 states with guidance use attenuation factors equal to or more conservative than this number. We get a lot of questions asking if we should use DTSC's attenuation factor study database. Here's some information about that database. The study represents the best available science and a great compilation of vapor intrusion data in California prior to 2020. It's an analysis of primarily commercial site data in California. The study does have some limitations, however. It does not provide a sufficient basis for policy decisions. It does not account for all of the factors that contribute to variability, especially things like whether the air conditioning or heating systems were turned on. And it does not represent all building types. Most of the buildings in the study were commercial. There were very few residential buildings, and all of them were in Southern California. So due to these limitations, the study should not be used as a line of evidence in site-specific evaluations. Using the supplemental guidance approach, vapor intrusion data and building information will be collected and added to the GeoTracker database. This data will be used to reevaluate attenuation factor assumptions to build a stronger and more accurate assessment tool. Does this conflict with the underground storage tank policy? First, I'll remind you that for underground storage tank sites, they must be regulated by the Water Board or a certified local oversight program and follow the UST policy for all closure decisions on those cases. During the response to comments period, we did update the guidance to be more consistent with the policy and make it clear that the science is similar. The vapor intrusion threat to petroleum is frequently reduced by biodegradation. This is true for an underground storage tank case, as well as for larger petroleum releases. Attachment 2 provides petroleum-specific considerations similar to the low-threat closure policy, which can be used for non-UST petroleum sites. How do you use guidance? Guidance documents are tools. They aren't requirements or regulations. Think of vapor intrusion guidance documents as a menu of tools. The vapor intrusion guidance is one of these tools. It represents current science. It presents a good technical approach. It describes factors to consider in site-specific decisions. It provides options and describes when other approaches may be appropriate. It is not a prescriptive cookbook. And we need policy for enforceable minimum requirements. This is an online training, so I'm not taking live questions and answers, but I'll remind you that if you do have questions, please submit them to the vapor intrusion email box for the Water Board or DTSC, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks.